There's new information in terms of the truth about October 7th, what actually went down on October 7th. I know that many of the things that are revelatory about October 7th, you may have already heard on my live streams or some other independent media, almost definitely not from mainstream media. I thought that this video is a pretty excellent one. It was put together by Double Down News, but it's actually an Al Jazeera reporter so Al Jazeera has a documentary on YouTube that you can watch called October 7th or The Truth About It or something like that. And they spent who knows how long Al Jazeera investigators spent trying to figure this out. And he actually, I'm not going to play it, but he talks about how their documentary with all these revelations about October 7th has been met by silence by mainstream media. I know you're not shocked, but still, silence.
What's extraordinary is the Israelis were aware of the plans. Hamas were actually training quite openly for this operation, and they were actually placing the training videos online so anyone could view them.
Okay, that even shocked me. Israel knew about this. Even the New York Times, and I covered this when it came out. Let's see, where is this one? Even the New York Times covered that Israel knew about Hamas's plan for a year, and did nothing. Now, I know Israel wants to just say it's incompetence. I think there's a lot of evidence that they knew and allowed something to happen. That doesn't mean they knew that this was going to happen, like meaning the number of people dead or the number of people kidnapped, but they clearly knew the entire blueprint. A blueprint reviewed by the New York Times laid out the attack in detail. But what shocks me, which I did not know before watching this video with this Al Jazeera reporter, is that these training videos were up online. Like anyone could view them, saying, here's how we're going to get over the fence. We're going to take these hang gliders. We're going to blow holes in the fence. It's just totally unbelievable.
On the very night of October the 7th, before dawn, spotters along the fence are reporting back to headquarters, and the head of Shin Bet and the head of military intelligence take this seriously enough that in the middle of the night they're up and talking to each other, and they conclude it's just another training exercise. And what is extraordinary is that they don't even raise the alert level to number one, the most basic alert level that have made a huge difference. And they don't do that, which means that when Hamas bursts through the fence at 6:30 in the morning, they catch many of the defenders in their beds. I mean, you can see many of the soldiers are killed in their beds. Hamas had anticipated most of their fighters would be killed trying to get through the fence. In fact, only a small number were killed trying to get through the fence. They were as much taken by surprise as anyone by the performance of Israeli intelligence and the Israeli military.
It wasn't unusual for Hamas to post training videos online. And so if that's the case, then this was not out of the ordinary. But let's not forget that Israel allowed Hamas to exist, to start. Actually, there's cables, thank you, WikiLeaks, that show that Israel was well aware that Hamas was being created, that people were starting to build this organization, and they wanted it as a counter to the PLO, basically as a counter to what had been the second Intifada. And so Israel was like, yeah, whatever. And so again, like, this is the most surveilled place on the planet. They count the calories of Palestinians in Gaza. The idea that Israel didn't know about this, didn't know about Hamas, it's like they've watched this. It's like watching it's like the Truman Show. They've been watching this thing grow since birth. Yep. So they can't claim to be like, I'm sorry, I've never heard of Truman. Like, if you watch the whole thing happen.
They even had it walled in like the Truman Show,
but less pretty. And that was not a dig against Gaza saying it's less pretty than Florida. It's a dig against Israelis running an open air prison. So the whole thing is just ludicrous to assume that Israel didn't know this was going to happen. My feeling is that they just don't care how many soldiers or how many of their own people as hostages die because of, whether that's the Hannibal directive or what have you. It's like, it's just not that important.
Well, and I would say it's beyond just not that important. I'd say that for these megalomaniacal lunatics like Netanyahu, and this does not go for the entirety of Israeli population. This is a group of select elites who are in charge of these murderous decisions. I think they very much wanted something larger to happen so that they could then, quote unquote,
used.
justify this genocide, this ethnic cleansing. Now, it does not justify it. As you and I know, we do not. Yes, they try, and Israel will try and tell you, but October 7th. But October 7th, even if you believed their version of events, which have largely been debunked,
Which they don't believe anymore.
which they don't believe anymore, you still can't commit genocide. So, but October 7th is not an answer to everything. But they, in their mind, in their planning, believed that allowing something larger like this to happen would then allow them to commit this ethnic cleansing that they are doing and just obliterating the whole society.
By the performance of Israeli intelligence and the Israeli military. Crucially, also, they were taken by surprise by this very large music festival that was taking place, which they don't seem to have been aware of. Having overrun the military bases, the game plan was to grab hostages and take them back. And they do this on a large scale, but they also clearly kill very large numbers of unarmed civilians as well. The Israelis were then extraordinarily slow to respond. Now, they scramble Apache helicopters, but there's no ground control. It's pretty clear that in the chaos, some hostages at least were hit by Apache helicopter fire. We've identified 27 people who were clearly taken hostage, taken captive, and were taken away from their homes, but never made it to the fence, died somewhere between their homes and the fence.
So, and as a good journalist is doing, he's going by very careful analysis of what they exactly know. He is not going by, well, the Apache helicopters came in and started firing. Clearly, they killed everyone they could. 27 people were taken hostage by Hamas, is what he's saying, and died, quote unquote, between there and the fence. Well, Hamas wouldn't kill them because Hamas's
Why would you
aim...
take a hostage just to kill them?
Exactly.
on
That
your
would be
way?
ridiculous
Yeah.
and a waste of time. Hamas's aim, especially if they took someone out of their home, was to get them back to Gaza as a hostage. And then those 27 are clearly, I think, I mean, he won't say it, but murdered by IDF. He also
kind of did. I mean, he said Apache helicopters, and obviously Hamas did not have Apache helicopters.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah. No, he's saying IDF, but he's saying 27 people died between their homes in Gaza,
okay, I
as
see what you're
opposed to saying
Yeah,
the
yeah,
IDF
yeah.
murdered 27 people. That's just Israelis. Obviously, that's not Hamas fighters they murdered. But then we also have first-person witness testimonies, which I've covered as well, of one of the hostages who ultimately was released in November, and she was in one of the cars when a Apache helicopter came and shot it up, killed fellow kibbutz people from the kibbutz and murdered Hamas as well, and she survived. Anyway, we know that these IDF murdered everyone they could. He does talk about the Hannibal Directive, which we've covered a lot.
7th, the army revived the Hannibal Directive, put it into effect. 70 vehicles were hit. At least in some of the cases, everyone in the vehicle was killed.
The Israeli military does not deny the report.
No, that's something I didn't know, is that the Israeli military has also admitted that the Hannibal Directive was put back into effect, and the Hannibal Directive says kill everyone.
I didn't know it was out of effect.
Yeah, he claims that from their research, and I think Israel claims this as well, that although they had it for a time, their military then stopped using it as the predominant way of operating, but it was brought back into effect on that day. Either way, it doesn't. The point is, it was definitely happening that day.
Yeah.
Peculiarity of the days after October 7 is that the Israeli media and subsequently the international media choose to focus not on the very real and extensive crimes that Hamas and others did commit, but on crimes they did not commit. And this had two focuses. In the days immediately after, it's to do with babies. The most dramatic one is we see an allegation that there were 40 babies killed, many of them beheaded. This is very simple to deal with because we have a comprehensive list of the dead. We know that 2 babies are killed on October the 7th. One is a 10-month-old child who was hit by a bullet fired through a safe room door. The other is a child who dies after an emergency cesarean, a Bedouin child, in fact.
Oh, a Bedouin child. So not an Israeli baby that was beheaded.
So, yeah, the baby stuff is so easy to debunk because so few babies were killed on October 7th. It was exactly 2, and none of them fit any of the descriptions that are given in these ridiculous stories. And yet these things continue to float around. I mean, you still have people saying they killed babies. I mean, you still have Bill Maher on his show saying, we know they killed babies because they took video of it. Well, first of all, no, there's no video of it. And secondly, it was 2 babies killed, one of them by gunfire, the other in emergency C-section. So it's like just laughably false. And I like his point that bizarrely, but it's because of Israeli propaganda, why not focus on the real crimes instead of focusing on these made up things?
Well, I think one is because when you focus on the real crimes, you see that the crimes, though they did kill people, a lot of it was breaking out of an open air prison. Then a lot of it was targeting soldiers specifically. Like he said, soldiers were killed in their beds. And then also you'd have to talk about the response, which was just like, shooting anything that moves. And so in order to avoid that awkward conversation, and if you really wanted to have any journalistic integrity, you'd also talk about the context of what was going on and why Hamas would feel the need to do this. But of course, they would never do that. But it's easier to not even get into this awkwardness of like, this is how many people Hamas killed, but then Israel also did this, and we're not sure. People might have been killed by Apache helicopters, and you might actually have to like do some digging and some journalism. So to avoid that, you just pick up on stories that are so sensational that it doesn't matter what the response is. It's just so horrific, which is exactly what the babies in the incubators was. It's like, that's just so horrific. We have to wipe these people off the face of the earth. Ironically, Israel has killed thousands of babies and nobody in the Western media gives a shit. So, I mean, obviously there's that remarkable hypocrisy there.
Yeah.
But the idea being, just like the babies in the incubators in Kuwait, the idea is that like, this is so horrific that these people don't even deserve a trial. They don't deserve any kind of due process, or the context of which they were living in doesn't matter because they're just such monsters. So it's a lot easier to run with that story. It's a lot cleaner, tighter, nice around the edges. You don't really have to dig into the context of the situation.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. And then we've also learned, this didn't come out till, a couple of months after October 7th, but we've also learned that Israel has literally done focus testing in the Israel lobby and found that people are more upset, more traumatized when they hear about rape than when they hear about murder or other words they tested like savagery and brutality and things like that. And so therefore they've decided to really focus on this systematic rape story that has been debunked, instead of focusing on real crimes or focusing on those who were actually murdered. There is a truth to the story. It's just the reverse.
God, that guy makes my...
Dozens of children, bound them up, burned them.
It's all fake.
And executed them.
Is he talking about what Israel's done?
Yeah.
Israel has executed 5-year-olds at point blank range.
They just took his clip of where he was telling them what to do, and they made it look like he was, No, this is literally him talking about October 7th, and it's all made up. It's all fake.
Terribly important, this, because it was entirely untrue. We know the house he's talking about. He's talking about the house in Kibbutz Be'eri, which was the house that was stormed by Israeli police and military, and where it is almost certain that all of the hostages were killed by the Israeli police and military. There were 2 children there, 2 twins, but no other children. So we know the story is untrue. Mr. Landau told a number of other stories. There's one particularly notorious one about...
He's referring to Zaka, and this guy Landau, who has been, every story he tells is completely fake. And in fact, there's a clip, I might have shown it a couple weeks ago, a clip of that reporter. He got an interview with this guy from Zaka, and the guy from Zaka says he has a photo of the fetus that was cut out of a woman or something. And because this reporter doesn't believe the story, he says, "Can I see that?" And so the guy legit pulls up a photo that is not of that.
The back.
We simply know this is untrue. The list of the dead show there's no such victim. Mr. Landau said, I have a picture of this atrocity.
If you want to see the picture, I have the picture of it. This is the baby.
I'm sorry to be graphic here, but I can't see a baby here.
You can't see the baby but this is the picture of the mother.
It was a piece of charred flesh. It wasn't a baby. It certainly wasn't a baby. So it was interesting. Psychologically, I'm not quite sure why he offered to show me a photo that he didn't have. I point out...
Doesn't it sound so much
In
more
a
scathing
British-
in British accent?
In a British accent,
just
it's
always-
amazing. It's just so digging.
I'm just not sure
He didn't have-
psychologically.
Psychologically, he didn't even have the photo.
Well,
I know why. I actually do know why he offered to show it because he didn't believe in a million years
That he would ask to see it.
anyone would say,
Yeah.
"I want to see a horrific scene like that." But because this guy is a legit journalist, he said, "Well, I can't report it is real unless I see it. So can I see it?" And the guy then is under the where he's under a situation where he has to say yes, and he doesn't have it.
also just a little concerning that this guy has pictures of charred bodies on his phone. Can we
Well-
like just
Well, so that has to do with what Zaka is really, and I've covered them earlier, but they are this quote unquote first responder group of Orthodox Jews who only, this is only an Israeli thing. They go to scenes, horrible scenes like this, and they immediately, under religious law, like grab the bodies and remove them so that there can be no autopsy. All the evidence is destroyed. The bodies are taken away. No one ever gets to look at them. But it also means that in a situation like this, they can say whatever they want. They can make up whatever story they want because they've destroyed all the evidence. They've gotten rid of all the bodies. And these guys are then the only source of
for
these
that
stories.
information, yeah.
But of course, when they make up lies about 40 babies and there were no 40 babies, that still comes out as debunked. Something else that's hilarious is they are first responders that have no medical
Yeah.
training. They could not help you in a million
No, they're
years
just
to
there
survive.
to carry your body away.
They're just there to make sure all evidence is destroyed.
They're like morbid movers, is what they are.
Morbid movers. Is that the name of the company?
It should be. It's way better name than Zaka, let's be honest.
So anyway, that you can find, that was an interview with the filmmaker, but you can find that full film from Al Jazeera online of them debunking so much of October 7th.